No, because I can't see what you're doing.
I'm not going to use that very much. I don't know. Is it probably just gone? Screen went blank?
It's searching.
Well, I'm going to use it till the very end.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's 6:30, and I'd like to go ahead and get started on time. I'm Terry Witt-Bailey, and I serve as the Director of Community Development for the City of Muncie, and I'd like to welcome you to the second in a series of educational workshops that we're doing through the City of Muncie, through our office. We think that by providing these workshops and meetings, we will help our city to increase its quality of life and quality of place, and we're glad that you are here this evening. I do want to make sure that I introduce a few people that are here in the audience, because you may have other questions you might want to ask them tomorrow when they are at work, because some of them are here to present, but others are here to provide additional information. We have Judy Rust, who is our auditor. She's over there. Also, Sharon Yautis and Ella Pickett are there. Thank you for being here this evening. We have John Dorr, who's our Delaware County Treasurer, who's been our treasurer since 2009. We also have staff who are here from the Community Development Office. You can just raise your hand also. And I see our Executive Director of the Human Rights Commission, who is also here from the City of Muncie. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Joe Edwards, who is here from SRI Incorporated. He's been doing this for 13 years. So we think he has a great deal of knowledge that he can share with us this evening to help us to get through that tax sale that's coming next month. Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for coming. And before I start, I want to thank the county officials for being here. This is I do this work in about 80 counties in Indiana, and I do this work in Colorado and in Iowa and Florida. And I can tell you there's no better office holders than are seated over here, Judy Rust and John Dorr, in terms of being conscientious and caring about doing their job right and according to law. And they do a great job at what they do, and their staffs as well. So if you end up bidding and coming to the sale on September 12th, you will come to know these folks maybe more intimately than you care to, but you will be in and out of their offices a lot as you do your due diligence and so forth. So remember their faces because you'll be seeing them, and they all have great knowledge of this process. Every one of them could be up here doing what I'm doing, and they've done a great job.
Joe, I missed someone. I just want to also make sure that we recognize our building commissioner who is over there. You may not know him by face, but Craig Nichols is here also. Thank you.
Let me first of all start by telling you what I hope to accomplish this evening. I'm not going to do a PowerPoint. I'm just going to talk. At the end of the night, I will give you a handout. That handout is basically the same handout you would get at the tax sale, and we'll have everything in it that you would learn from me tonight, but only in hard copy. So in 3 or 4 months, when you go back and try to remember what I said, you'll have it actually in writing. So I intend to basically go over this process, the tax sale process, and what you might expect if you come to the sale, the fairgrounds, and you bid and you're a successful bidder, what will happen over the course of the next year to year and a half from the tax sale process. Also in the back of the room is a document that if you believe after you listen to everything I say that you want to bid at the sale September 12th, please fill that out and turn it in to me. It's a bidder registration form. The same document we'll be using the day of the sale, but this kind of gets you pre-registered, if you will. And there's some online pre-registration, but these documents, if you turn that into me before you leave tonight, we'll have your number there ready for you on September 12th. So if you think you want to bid, take one of those, fill it out, and give it to me before you leave here tonight, and I'll take it with me, and we'll have your numbers all ready when you arrive at the fairgrounds. Let me tell you a little bit about what this sale is, and I'm not going to use the laptop until the end and show you where some of the resources are, but I'm not going to go through this long process. But in this, on this website, and on the website itself is on the front of the document I'm going to give you at the end, the buyer handout. The website is right on there. It's www.sri-taxsale.com. But in any event, it has this entire process even in greater detail than anybody that I know would ever want to go through it. But it's there if you want to. And if you want to become an expert, that's this right here, this whole timeline is the way to do it. It starts with the actual assessing of taxes and goes all the way through getting a deed. So it's very detailed, more than what I'm going to get into tonight, more than you would probably even need to know. And this is a lien sale. Okay, you're not buying a piece of property at the sale, you're buying a lien on property. What that means is you don't take ownership the day of the sale, you get a document, which is a certificate. That certificate has on the front of it a dollar amount. That's the amount, the minimum bid amount, and also the amount you bought it for. But the minimum bid amount is basically all the past due taxes, special assessments, penalties, and costs. And that's the face value, the minimum bid of the certificate. When you leave that day, maybe not that day because this sale's kind of big, but the day or two after, you will have your certificate from the sale, and that is the document that basically represents your lien. And that's the document, again, it's not a deed. You won't get a deed to this property for a period of time, and that certificate doesn't give you ownership. It doesn't give you the right to go out and knock on the people's door and say, hey, I bought your property at the tax sale yesterday and you need to get out. It doesn't give you the right to go on the property, to do anything to the property. And if you go on it, you're trespassing because you don't have an ownership right any more than if you have a mortgage on your house, your mortgage company doesn't have the right to come and go as they please because they have a lien. They don't have an ownership right. So that lien only gives you like a mortgage on that property for the dollar amount. The great thing about your lien is that's a priority over every mortgage and every other lien on that property because it's a tax lien. So it's the number one lien that anybody can have on that property. So if you go on the property, and I warn you not to go on the property, if you do, there's a risk involved. Sometimes a vacant house isn't always vacant. You read stories about that around the country. But more importantly, some of you probably have property you would like to bid on next to yours, and you've been maybe maintaining it for 10 or 15 years. And it's easy to say, oh gosh, that guy at the tax sale said, don't go on the property, so suddenly you've got weeds this high. If you've been mowing it for 10 years, I think the risk is pretty great that another year you're probably not going to get arrested. So, but if you buy a property and there's people living there, my advice, don't go around because you could get arrested for sure, and it happens. It's not terribly uncommon, unfortunately. Now that lien, what you're buying again is a lien, and you've got certain things you must do to make that lien become a deed. And you're all going to buy property with the idea that you're going to ultimately get a deed. Certain things you must do. One of two things will happen as a result of your purchase. First of all, within a year from the date of that sale, the owners of the property or their representatives, typically a mortgage company or the owner, will come in and redeem that property. They have the right to do that within 1 year of the date of the sale. So September 12th of 2013 is the cutoff, and those folks have the right to come into the county auditor's office and redeem the property. And what that means is they're going to pay a sum of money in the county auditor's office that will put them back in complete ownership of the property and will extinguish your lien. So you will not get a deed to the property if the property gets redeemed. So that's the bad news because you wanted the property. But the good news is you're going to get all your money back plus interest. So let me tell you how the interest is figured because it's pretty good interest. And it's a reason why the fairgrounds will have a big crowd and there'll be a lot of people there bidding because the interest rate on return is pretty good. Every property will have a minimum bid. That minimum bid, like I said, is made up of the past due taxes, interest, penalties, and so forth. That minimum bid will bear interest at the rate of 10%. And by 10%, I mean immediately. For in other words, if the minimum bid is $1,000 and the property redeems the day after the sale, you're going to get $1,100 back. So it's 10% straight interest on the minimum bid. That 10% increases at the end of 6 months to 15%. So if somebody came in during the 7th month, let's say, you would get $1,150 back just on the interest on the minimum bid. Now, many of the properties will go up from that minimum bid. They'll be, we sold, I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe somebody here can remember, the Star Bank building across the street. I think we sold it for $3 or $4 million in a sale not long ago. Obviously, the taxes on it were $70,000 or $80,000, but the bidders, the big investors, knew that property was going to redeem, and so they wanted to run the bid up and get as much interest as possible. But the interest on the overbid or the surplus bid is 10% per annum. So if you bid, in my scenario of a $1,000 minimum bid, if you bid $10,000, then that $9,000 will bear interest at 10% per annum. So it'll go up each and every day, like your checking account, or if you're paying interest on a car loan or any of those things, that's figured per day. So the closer to the end of the year, the higher, obviously, the more money you're going to get back on that interest because it's being figured over a longer time. But it's 10% and it's 10% per annum. So a property like that Star Bank building, which redeemed within about a week, I think, was still a substantial amount of return when you consider that you got that money back right away, and they got made on a $70,000 tax lien. One day later they made $7,000. That's pretty good return when you turn around and go to the next county and invest those same dollars the next time. So it's a good return. It's better than any of you are getting at the First National Bank of Muncie, right? And so that's why people swarm to these sales, and that's why there'll be a lot of big investors there, and they'll be buying the big properties. And they'll spend a lot of money if they think they redeem. They don't want the property. The guys that come from New Jersey and Florida and these people, they don't want them. If they get a deed, they've made a bad buy in their mind. Their investors don't want the properties. They don't want deeds, bless you. They want the interest. And then there's folks that want the one property or the two properties. In fact, at our sale out here, we will allow people who want one or two properties to bid and get out of the room. I mean, in other words, pick the properties you want. We call them onesie-twosies. And if you're there for one property at the beginning of the sale, I'll say, anybody here got one or two they want to bid on? And you raise your hand, you tell which one, and we get you out of the way, because those big investors will sit and bid all day long till we're done. And this gets you guys back to work. It gets you back on your way to whatever you need to do that day, because invariably one of you in this room will have a property on the last page. And you'll sit there till 2 o'clock to bid on it, and maybe you don't get it, and you feel like you've wasted your whole day. So this is a good way to get to clear the room of people that are just there for one or two, and then the big buyers will stay all day and bid against each other. Then there's the middle guy, the middle investor, as I see it, who is there, may have $100,000 or $200,000, and they're fine with redemptions, and they're also fine with deeds, because they may slap some paint, do some cosmetic work, have rentals, whatever they do with them, or turn them around, market them, flip them for a good price. So there's like 3 levels of buyers at every sale I do. Now within this 1 year period of redemption, you as the buyer have things you must do. This is really critical, very important. It's all in this handout I'm going to give you at the end. 9 months from the date of the sale, you have to send out a certified mail notice to anybody who has a substantial property interest in that property. And to determine who the substantial property interest holders are, you've got to get a title search. Indiana Code defines a substantial property interest holder as somebody who has a lien in the recorder's office or a judgment lien in the clerk's office. And that's where your title company will go, and they'll look up those properties, and they'll say there's a mortgage to Chase, and there's a second mortgage to Star Bank, and there's 5 judgments to Atlas Collection, and maybe there's a mechanics lien to Knatzer Heating and Cooling. And they're going to identify all those, and then it's your obligation to send a notice, a certified mail letter, to each and every one of those people telling them, I bought a lien on this property and I'm going to take a deed to it if you don't do anything about it. In other words, if you don't come in and redeem and protect your interest, then I'm going to take a deed. And these notices are very legalistic, and we don't recommend you do them yourself. We don't recommend you get a title company, or that we don't recommend you do a title search without a title company. Don't get a lawyer and get a title. Hire professionals to do this work, because if you're standing in front of a judge asking for a deed and he says, wait a minute, this T's not crossed, this I's not dotted, you're not going to get your deed and you've lost your investment. So it's better to get somebody that does this type of work and does it right, and that way you know. You can sit back. It's there's a cost involved. Obviously, these infomercials you see where you can buy real estate for free, no money down and all that, that's all great. This is kind of akin to that, but there's always a cost. And if you want it done right, then certainly get somebody to do that work for you. Because again, those notices are very legalistic. They have to contain very specific information. So those notices go out by law within 9 months of the date of the sale. So you've got to act kind of quick. I mean, you need to get going fairly quickly. Your title search costs, your attorney fees are reimbursable to you if the property redeems. So if you go hire ABC Title and then go over and hire Edwards and Edwards Law Firm, the costs of the title search and the attorney's fees are reimbursable to you if the property redeems. If it doesn't redeem, it's just the cost of getting a deed to property. It's just like any other time you buy real estate. You got all these little costs. That's going to be your only cost, is the attorney's fees and the title search. Now, in order to get reimbursed for those, and this is important, you must file a document with the auditor's office called a 137B form. That form we expect you to have your receipts when you come in to file that, and you need to file when you pay and incur those costs. Not before, not after. Now, the statute does require you to wait 30 days to file any 137Bs. And there's a reason for that. One is the owner of these properties, the non-taxpayer basically, if they come in to redeem 2 or 3 days after the sale, it's kind of eliminates a piling on process where all of a sudden they got to pay another $600 or $700 for attorney's fees and title search costs 2 days after they didn't pay their tax. So that's kind of why it's there. It's a buffer period so people don't take advantage of the property owner. But you got 30 days to kind of sit back and wait, and then you go get your title company, or you can hire them before, but you're not going to be able to turn in for reimbursement. So I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't expend the money until I knew I could get reimbursed on a redemption. So you wait 30 days, you hire your folks, you get the lawyer, and you get your work done, and you turn in your 137B costs. It's important you turn those in immediately when you expend those funds, because you may pay your title company, you may pay your law firm, and decide a week later, oh, I better get in there and file that, and you're going to walk in there, and the auditor's office is going to tell you, sorry, they redeemed it yesterday. So then you got to backtrack and either have you ever tried to get money out of a lawyer? Or it means the title company's already started the work. So you're going to be now going back saying, hey, wait, I don't need your services anymore. The property redeemed. So make sure you do that simultaneously. I mean, most of every person you deal with is going to be right down here around the courthouse square. So you're right here. Go file that paperwork at the county building when you're here. Again, 9 months from the date of sale, all that has to be done. So, I don't know, September, what is that? June? Is that right? By June 13th of 2013, it seems like a long way away, but it really isn't, all that work will have to be done. Okay? Then you can sit back and do nothing, because that last 3 months is basically the time frame for the owners, all the people that got these certified mail notices, mortgage holders, second mortgage holders, mechanics lien holders, judgment lien, contract purchasers, all those people, recorded liens will get that notice. They then have this time to get their ducks in a row and come in and redeem the property. Now, usually, as a rule of thumb, the people that redeem are either the owner or the mortgage company. Atlas Collection is not going to walk in the auditor's office and redeem a property for an $800 medical bill. And in fact, the people at Atlas hate the tax sale because they get stacks and stacks of certified mail notices. And they have to go out to their archives and stick them in folders. I've talked to some of the people out there, and they never redeem them, obviously. They don't have an interest. Their interest is more about the person than it is the property. Mortgage holder has an interest. They don't want to lose their property to a tax sale buyer if they can help it. So they come in and redeem, put the redemption cost in the mortgage, rewrite a loan or whatever. So that's who's typically going to be involved in a redemption, are those folks. Occasionally you see a mechanics lien holder, if it's kind of fresh, might come in and redeem a property, but generally it's those two entities, the owner, the mortgage companies, that come in and redeem the properties. If any of these properties are on sheriff's sale, I kind of hate to open this can of worms. The sheriff's sale is the mortgage company going after the property. In this case, it's the county treasurer who's got a lien on the property for taxes. The treasurer's lien is bigger and greater than anybody's, including the sheriff's. So the mortgage company, by statute, if the property's in foreclosure, and some of you worry about this, people say, oh, I'm afraid to buy this because it's in foreclosure. Don't be. Because if it cannot be sold at foreclosure until the taxes or the redemption are paid by law. So if you have one, in fact, you know, it's kind of a slam dunk, really. If you think it's in foreclosure and it's going to be going to sheriff's sale, you're going to get your money back. I mean, that's kind of a guarantee, because the statute says a sheriff cannot sell a property that has past due taxes or has been through a tax sale not redeemed. So let's say you've done all this work, at the end of the 1 year period passes, you don't hear from anybody. If the property redeems, you'll get a notice from the auditor's office that says, come in, get your money. And you'll come in with your certificate and fill out a claim form, and again, you'll get back the amount you bid, plus you'll get 10% interest on the minimum bid, 10% per annum on the surplus. You'll get your 137B costs back. So you'll get all your money, you'll be whole, plus interest. This won't cost you anything if it redeems. Now, we also know that every year on May and November that we have to pay real estate taxes. We all do. The people that are on the list when we come into September or not, they don't pay. But you guys do, and you know that on these properties there'll be taxes due next year on May 10th. And you won't get a bill because, as I've already said, you're not the owner, you're a lien holder. So that bill will go to the same person that's ignored it for the last 3 years. It's up to you to contact the treasurer's office and say, what are the taxes on this, and come in and pay them. There's no reason not to pay those. And here's why. First of all, you'll get reimbursed on redemption because you can fill out one of these fancy 137B forms, and it goes right over the auditor's office. When you pay your taxes, you walk right next door and turn that in, and that gets entered, and then when the property redeems, you'll get that money back. If the property doesn't redeem, you want the taxes paid, because why would you want to get a deed to property? It's already got a penalty on it because the May taxes weren't paid. Let's say you get a deed in early November, right before the taxes are due again. So it makes sense only to pay those. File your 137B form. I mean, they know the numbers in April. You know, the bills go out in the middle of April. So you can call anytime and say, you know, how much, and then go in and pay it. And again, there's no reason not to. In fact, there's lots of reasons to do it. So the 1 year passes. You haven't heard from the auditor's office that the property redeemed. It is now up to you to file a petition with the court for deed. And again, your attorney, I would always suggest you get the same lawyer to do that, because there's a certain thing about familiarity with a person and their office procedures and those things, but also if the person did that work for you the first time, they're going to know who the interested parties are, because they got to send another certified letter that says, okay, you blew it, you missed the deadline, we're now taking a deed. And that petition, then the judge has 30 days to sign that petition, to sign that order for deed. You will then get a deed. The county auditor's office will say, we got a deed, come get it. And you will then trot in and pick it up from the auditor's office. Once you do that, guess what? You can now go out there and tell those people that are living there to get out. You can do improvements. You can paint the barn. You can mow the grass without trespassing. Once that deed is in your hand. Don't assume you own it until that deed is in your hand. The court order, I mean, that may be evidence that you're going to be getting a deed, but until that deed is in your hand, signed by the county auditor, and in that case, you're getting a deed to that property that is free and clear of all liens and encumbrances. It is the purest form of deed you can get because it's coming from the state of Indiana. It's a deed from the state through their officer, which is the county auditor. That's the entire process from cradle to grave. Now, a little warning, I guess. This is a buyer beware sale. There are no warranties of any kind on these properties. There's not a warranty that it's fit for habitability or any particular purpose. No warranty that the property isn't, that it's zoned a certain way. No warranty that it's not underwater or doesn't have, doesn't glow in the dark, underground tanks or any of those things. No warranties at all. Buyer beware, no 3-day rescission period. When you buy a tax sale certificate, you bought it and it's yours. And there's no, you can't come in, a week later and say, oh, gosh, I made a big mistake. And, that seems like common sense to me, but you wouldn't believe. And it was last year I had a sale up in, never forget it, in Decatur, Indiana, which is Greensburg, Decatur County, Greensburg. That's the county where the tree grows out of the top of the courthouse. Anybody seen that? It's just some old scrub, Talbot tree or something that some janitor 100 years ago didn't do anything about, and it grew out, and now it's famous. That's true. I mean, it's not, it's kind of died a few times, but they keep planting new ones. That's a secret, too. Decatur County secret. A guy came up after the sale, and he says, oh, gosh, he says, and I'll never forget him, he had a big Stetson on. And I thought, he's a big cowboy or rancher or something. I have a lot of those in Indiana, cowboys. He said, we got a problem. He said, I just bought a landfill. And I said, we don't have a problem. You've got the problem because you just bought a landfill. And he had to, as a penalty, basically pay 25% of his bid. If you bid at the tax sale and you decide between the time you bid and the time that money's due, you got to pay 25%. So that was an expensive $1,200 lesson for the cowboy. So understand, do your due diligence, do your research. Delaware County has a great GIS system. You can do a lot of this work in your jammies. I mean, you can sit at home and do a lot of work online. I would never recommend in a million years buying a tax sale property without doing a drive-by. And a lot of these properties you're thinking about bidding on are in your neighborhood. They're people, they're houses maybe old family properties that grandma lived in years ago and you'd like to get it back. But don't ever buy one without doing a drive-by. Even these guys that bid hundreds of thousands of dollars at these sales, they can do a lot of their research online, but I can tell you they'll never buy one without driving by. Because if you don't drive by, you don't know whether that map that you saw in the GIS from 3 months ago, if that house didn't burn down. I mean, there's lots of things you need to know that you can't pick up online. So I would never recommend buying without a drive-by. And these sophisticated buyers have all kinds of fancy programs, and they can put in all the addresses by spreadsheet of the ones they want, and it'll tell them how to drive there, the closest way to get to all these properties. And it's kind of amazing how they do it. But don't assume. I mean, if you're at the sale and you're looking through a list and you say, oh, that's a pretty good area out there on 1200 Hackley or whatever, and suddenly, you kind of buy it because you didn't get the one you wanted. You got some cash burn a hole in your pocket, so you bid on it, and then you find out it's a crack house or something. Who knows what? I mean, meth lab now. I mean, I'm from Gaston, so I know a little bit about those. No, I mean not in a bad way. My neighbors to the north have a really nice chocolate lab. I mean, it's real cute, kind of a puppy. And then on the south, they have a meth lab. So you just never know what you're going to get out there. So it's buyer beware. Just be careful. If you don't know what you're bidding on, like I say, and people do this. I see them at the sale. They bid on something, they don't get it, and then they start talking to their partner or their spouse or whatever, and they caught up in it. It's an auction. That's why auctioneers chant and do the things they do, although we won't chant out there at the tax sale. It'll be more of an informal type auction. But the reason I think it's important to why we don't do the chant. You've all been, how many here have not been to some type of an auction where the auctioneer says, hey, but you get $2 for it and all that business? You've been to the farm auctions, livestock, cars, estate auctions. The reason auctioneers do that is because it gets people excited and it runs up bids. And people get all pumped up and they see the guy over there and they've got their paddles up. And you always see on TV somebody scratches their head and they count it as a bid, and it's always, that's not going to happen at the fairgrounds. Okay? You can scratch your head all you want. I'm going to just ask you when you're bidding, put your number up and keep it up. Make sure that I see it. That's all. The reason why we don't care if the bids go up is because nobody gets any more money if they do. The tax sale serves one purpose, and that's to collect taxes. We don't care. We have like a little game at SRI who can get the highest surpluses and who can have the highest bids. I won the contest over here at Star Bank that year. I got nothing for it except bragging rights. But these guys over here don't care because nobody makes any more money if you sell one for $1 million if you sell for $1,000. I won't make any more. SRI doesn't make any more. We get paid per parcel. We get the same dollar on every property that we sell, whether it's $1 million bank or whether it's that little lot out on Hackley with the meth lab. It doesn't matter. So we don't want anybody to get caught up in that and leave there regretting because they spent too much money and like, gosh, I really got ripped off. That's not our goal. Our goal is that we get the minimum bid. If we don't get the minimum bid, we're not going to sell it. So it's not, that's kind of a no-brainer. But the whole idea is at the end of the day, we want to collect taxes. That's what the statute, that's what the law expects, is to collect taxes. So that's how the whole process will work at the fairgrounds. It's going to be informal. It's going to be a little bit like this, only a bigger crowd and a colder room. But I'm going to sit there and interact just like this and take bids and there'll be somebody that'll get lost and be on the wrong property and I'll say, okay, let's start over. It's not, I don't want anybody to leave there feeling like they got hosed. That's not what we're there for. That's not what these folks are about. They don't care what you guys pay. They just want to collect taxes, just like Don's Guns, right? We just like to have fun collecting taxes. Let me tell you, there's a couple things I want to mention. First of all, there are liens that attach to these properties after the sale. And this is one of the most convoluted, confusing parts of the tax sale statute, as far as I'm concerned. And that is, part of the statute says that the minimum bid on September the 12th must include all taxes due during the calendar year of the sale. So we know the November taxes are going to be on there. So when you buy that property, buy that lien, you've paid the November tax. You're not going to owe anything until the next May. But what happens when the city puts a mowing lien on that property in November, after the sale? Good question. And I don't have an answer. The statute says, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know the city's going to put a lien on. Judy Rust has a crystal ball, but she uses it for figuring tax rates and things, not this. But we don't know when they're going to file these liens. But the statute says you've got to include them in the minimum bid. So there's been some litigation on that. It's gone both ways. In fact, there's, I think, been litigation here in Delaware County on that. It's just something to keep your eyes open for. If you know one of these properties is on Gretchen's hit list, these ladies here mean business. If they're going to demolish a property, they're going to demolish it. So if it doesn't hurt. If you think, and you know what you're buying, if you're buying, some of the houses that are near me, I'd want to go check with the people in charge of demolishing properties first. It wouldn't be them because they're the city of Muncie. But certainly if you're buying a property in the city of Muncie and there's what color are your tags? Orange? Green. Bright green. Like a tie I have. I should have worn it tonight. Bright green tag on it that says this property is set for demolition, or there's all kinds of things tacked to it from the city, then understand that if that property gets demolished within the next several months, then you've got an issue. Because those demolition liens aren't like weed liens, mowing liens, where they're 60 or 80 or $100. It's going to be thousands. So that's part of the drive-by process, part of knowing what you're buying. Now, there's that period of time between September the 12th and the end of the year that's in confusion because the statute says you've got to sell it. The minimum bid must include everything due that year. The real issue then becomes the ones that get filed after or that become accrue. Statute says accrue. Nobody really knows what that means. But they accrue after the first of the year. Then by law, those are your responsibility. So it's part of the risk. Again, this is not a slam dunk. There's a risk anytime you buy a tax certificate. So don't, again, know your property. That'll help a lot. It will help a lot. I don't know how often your office gets contacted by folks that have bought tax liens and want to work out a thing to keep them off the demolition list until they get a deed or that type of thing. But that's the problem. You've got a year basically of waiting to get a deed of the property, and if it's on a list, then it becomes something you've got to talk to the city about.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Unsafe building orders are recorded, so when you do a title search, you'll see that there's an unsafe building order. If you find one, you should call us. Number two, when we schedule a property for a hearing and before we demolish it, we're required to notify the tax sale buyer. So you'll be notified, or you should have some inkling that a property is Oh, sorry. Unsafe building unsafe building orders are recorded in the county recorder's office. So when you do your title search, you'll find those unsafe building inspection findings. When we schedule properties for hearing, the hearing records, if a hearing's been held on it in the past 6 years, there will be a hearing record that's recorded in the recorder's office, and that will show up in your title search. When we schedule properties for hearing, we notify tax sale buyers. The state statute requires that. And when we schedule properties for demolition, we also notify tax sale buyers. So if you've got a property that gets torn down and you don't have any idea, then maybe we didn't have your proper address. Oh, also, I should also add that we also publish all those addresses in the newspaper. When we schedule a property for a hearing, when we impose a civil penalty on it, all those are published every month in the newspaper. And when we tear houses down, we also publish those in legal notices too. So owners are notified in a lot of different ways.
And you probably are going to know, if you've researched this property and go buy it, you're going to know if it's one that might be on somebody's list. Aside from even if you get close enough to see what's tacked to the door, I mean, we all know whether a property appears to be that a strong wind is going to make it fall over. So, you know, if you're looking at, certain properties, you're going to know, I mean, there's no way it's on a list to be torn down. But, use your judgment and don't hesitate to contact somebody at the city to find out if it's on a list. Some cases, you're not going to feel comfortable going up and looking on a door, or, I've already told you don't go on the property. When I say drive-by, I mean drive-by. So, on this bidder registration card that you'll all fill out, and if you fill one out today, great, and give it to me, but the day of sale, I mean, nobody gets a bidder number without filling this out. When you fill this out, you're going to sign at the bottom that you understand certain things under the penalties for perjury. And that is, number one, that if you don't pay, you're going to be fined or penalized 25%. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does occasionally happen, like the cowboy guy. It also says that if you have a property on which there's tax sale costs within the county, that you can't bid. And it also goes through a whole litany of things involving unsafe buildings. If you've ever been tagged for unsafe building, had a civil penalty, all those kinds of things, you can't bid. But here's the catch, because I know you're thinking, oh, I'll sneak in there. No, I'll never know there's 150 bidders. Or you can register online. They'll never know. Well, guess what? We have 6 months to find you. We have 6 months to find out that you didn't qualify to bid. And after the sale, I mean, annually, I give Gretchen a list of the bidders, and she painstakingly goes through her list of people that have civil penalties. And if you bid and you don't meet the qualifications to bid, then there's a forfeiture of the sale, which means they keep your money and you get nothing. They take the money that you've paid and apply it towards all these other horrible things that you've done. And I know by looking around, none of you fit that. But you might tell your neighbors, if they're thinking about bidding, that that's going to be, they keep your money and apply it towards other taxes, and you got nothing. That certificate becomes forfeited, and you can't do anything with it. If it redeems the next day, too bad. You've lost your money. And it says all that on here, and when you sign it, you're agreeing to those terms. I mean, you don't have to agree to them. It's the law, but you're acknowledging that you understand it. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does. Certain counties, and this really isn't one. Certain counties have people that come in and bid a lot that try to, slumlords, I guess, might be as good a word as any. They let their properties go to unsafe building, and then they go bid on something else. So that's what this is to protect against. I will show you everything I've told you on here and more. Everything you want to know about tax sale, but we're afraid to ask, is right here on this website. And again, the document I'm going to give you, and I'm not going to let anybody leave without one, because if you're here and interested in bidding, you'll want that document, because it does lots of things. It tells you everything I've told you, sends you to the statutes. If you're working with a lawyer, that you can give that to them, and it'll tell them exactly where to go. But this website will give you everything you want to know about this sale in all of our counties where we work. If you decide, hey, maybe I want to go to Newcastle, this is kind of fun, I'm going to go to Newcastle and bid, or I'm going to go to Anderson. Portland, we do every county contiguous to Delaware. We do 80 counties in Indiana, so you'd have to drive a ways to find one we don't do. You can register online, which is basically the same form that I just showed you. And it tells you how to register. And it's real easy, but none of you need to do it. If you're here tonight and you fill out one of those forms, you don't have to do this. And you'll already have a number waiting on you when you get there. Uh-oh, I think I went too far. I did. All of the dates of all the counties that we work in are on the website as well. You can either do it by scroll, and we'll just go down to Delaware. When's the newspaper ad run, the first one?
All done.
It already ran?
Last week was last week for the newspaper.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. What am I thinking? Okay, so if any of you didn't get the newspaper that was out, the list is on here. Once it runs in the newspaper, the list is available on here. I'm missing a link. There will also be things on here, and this is for another county because we don't have specific payment terms here. They just accept cash certified funds. But as you look around, you're going to find various payment terms for the sales as well. So, and again, Delaware County doesn't have a payment term listed. This has all the information about the sale, and it even tells you that it's 76 degrees out right now and partly cloudy. And unfortunately, when you go to this page, you got to look at my picture as well. And you can pull up the property list. It's downloadable in various formats, things that I don't understand because it's computer related. But if you want the list like in a spreadsheet format, you can get it, that type of thing. This is a real-time list. What that means is every day since July 1st, when this list got certified, people come into the treasurer's office and pay their taxes. Or some people file bankruptcy, and a notice goes to their office and they remove them from the list because you can't sell property that's in bankruptcy. And if the people pay, it comes off the list. Treasurer's office removes those on a daily basis. So the actual list that you see on here is what's on the list right now. And if you look tomorrow, maybe the one that you were looking at on here today, you look tomorrow, it's gone. What happened to it? The people paid. So you don't in the old days, before we had some of this great technology, this list was the list that first we started with in July 1, and that was the only list you could get right through till the end. There was no real-time list. But as they make the payments on their system, it comes off of this list, and therefore you know that in the last day of the sale, this will dwindle down. How many do we have now?
We started out before you got the beginning list. We started out with 2,468. By the time we certified it and ran it in paper, we were down to 2,116. And as of today, we're down to almost 1,600.
Yeah.
We started out $7.8 million trying to get in taxes, back taxes. Now we're down to like 5.6 million.
And it will go down. That list, a lot of people wait till the last second. That last, the week or 10 days before September 12th, there'll be people coming in and paying. There'll be mortgage companies that learn about this because they have access to the same list, and they're going to make sure their property they have a mortgage on doesn't go on the tax sale. So they'll come in and pay. So understand those folks, this list will continue to dwindle. So keep an eye on it. Don't go out there on September 12th to the fairgrounds and take your day off work or half day and get out there and find out that property's not on. Payments get cut off, what, at noon on the 11th?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you check at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 11th and the property's still there, it's going to be sold. And there's exceptions, like, again, a bankruptcy. It's not uncommon to get a bankruptcy at 9:30 on the day of the sale. And the people come running in, they save their fannies by running to the bankruptcy court and getting a stay of collection, so they'll come in an hour before the sale, and we got to take it off. But, bankruptcy court trumps everybody. So I'll say that if it's on there that afternoon, it's going to be on the sale. There's one or two exceptions, but it's likely it'll be on. And it doesn't hurt when you get to the sale. We'll have a list of all the properties. Sit down at your little area where you're going to be sitting, go through it, make sure it's on there. I mean, I do that anyway. Very first thing, if you're only looking at a handful of properties, check them all, make sure they're on, so you don't sit there and waste your time. Because that's, nobody likes that.
And Joe, let them know that last year we had to pull 5 that morning that were bankruptcies.
Yeah.
And you notified them all at the very beginning.
Yeah.
You need to scratch these 5.
Yeah, I try to do that because the list that you get will be the list that I'm going to be using when I auction. And if there's any that get removed off of that list, because we won't print that list at our place until the night before, and we'll print enough copies for everybody to have. But that list will contain everything we know to be on the sale. And then that morning, if there's a bankruptcy, then I'll announce it if there's any that come off at the last minute, because I don't want somebody sitting there, waiting on the Smith property and the Smiths file bankruptcy. I don't, that just does nothing but make a lot of people angry, and they all end up being angry at me. And frankly, I don't like that well. You can be angry at other people, but not at Joe. I love talking in the third person. Also on this page, all of these resources. There's a glossary of terms, frequently asked questions. Right here is that buyer handout that you're all going to get before you leave. It's all on here. You remember the form that you use when you have costs, the 137B form. There it is right there. Because you can print those. Those are available at the day of the sale. They're available in the auditor's office. And you can print your own at home. If you say, oh gosh, I didn't get any of those forms, I want to go hire my title company, you can sit down at your computer and print them. All these resources are right here. The links to the Indiana code that apply to tax sale are right down here. Title, it's 6-1.1, -24 and 25. And those are links right to the Legislative Services website that has those statutes. Everything you would want to know on here is here. So use this resource. Before you pick up the phone and call Judy or John or Ella or Sharon or whoever, go here first, because I think you'll find your answer. We've really tried to make this one-stop shop for all the tax sales actually all over the state. So again, that website's on the front page of this document, and you can go to it and look around the website. You may find it, you might want to bid on a sheriff's sale property someplace. We do those in 35 counties. Unfortunately not here, but Blackford, for instance, another place. There's lots of things on here you can find. You may find yourself wanting to buy a property in St. Augustine, Florida, too, where we work. But I got dibs on the good ones, so don't be trying to outbid me. How many here know Christian Leitner, the old basketball player at Duke? You guys know him? We sold his house in St. Augustine this year. And Florida has a little different thing. They don't bid up on the dollars. They bid down on the rate. They only owed $70,000, but it was a $3.9 million house right on the Atlantic Ocean. It was gorgeous. And you kind of wonder, why would Christian Leitner not pay his taxes? But who knows? So yeah, you may look around on there and find something you want to bid on in Colorado or Florida or Iowa or someplace. So I will now let you guys ask questions if you have any. And I won't give you legal advice. If you've got some convoluted question, 3 years ago I bought a tax lien and it went into this and there was litigation, blah, blah, I won't do that. But if you have any questions about this process, any questions about what the sale's going to be like, what to expect on sale day, that's part of the kind of intimidating part is I've never been to an auction. A lot of you haven't, I know. Because when I asked, there weren't very many hands. And it's amazing to me, really, how many people have not been to any type of an auction. Yes, sir?
Minimum bid is what you see online.
Yes, that's the minimum bid. You may see a list online that has $2 amounts. One says due before sale, and one says minimum bid. Now, the newspaper ad had minimum bids. The due before sale is how much the owner has to pay to keep it off the sale. The difference being the November tax. Because we can't force anybody in Indiana to pay taxes that aren't due yet. We can force you as a lien buyer to pay the taxes that are due, as I said, through the end of the year. So the November tax, you'll be paying the November tax. If somebody walks into the treasurer's office on September the 11th and says, I want to pay, they don't have to pay the minimum bid because they don't have to pay the November tax. Yes, sir.
You said that when people walk in with onesies and twosies, maybe that they can get taken care of right
Yeah.
away. You mean to say that you can just walk up and say,
No. No, I mean, it's still an open public bid, an auction. But what'll happen is, let's say in this room right here, I'll say who here only has one or two they want to bid on. And I'll give instruction. I'll say, tell me what page, because this list will be 30 pages or whatever. I mean, it's going to be a lot of pages. And you'll say, I want to bid on parcel number, 2004 on page 29. And I'll go to it, and we'll take it out of order in essence. And then, other people will bid. I'll take your minimum bid, bidder number 12 over here has the minimum. Who's else in? And then a bunch of people will bid, or maybe they won't, and you'll get it. And then we'll go to the next onesie, twosie, and then you can leave. You don't have to stay till 2 or 3 o'clock, which is, we got done sooner than that last year. Because once we get the onesie, twosies done, then we go page by page. And it goes pretty quickly. I mean, I think it seemed like we were done maybe by 1 last year or so. Yes, sir.
if you buy it for over the amount that's listed as minimum bid, does that become part of the lien, 10%?
Yes, it's part of the lien. The front of your certificate will have, and everything that's on the certificate is dictated by statute. We'll have the minimum bid amount, and we'll also have the amount you bought it for. And the reason is obviously because the percent of interest is different on those two amounts. I mean, the way the interest is figured. So, yeah, the certificate will have all that on the front of it, signed by the auditor and treasurer as well. Yes, ma'am.
How do you pay? Say I got the bid. Do I just say, here's a credit card?
We will give you a document, and you will then go down to the treasurer's office
And how soon do they have to have that paid, Joe?
immediately. Day of sale. I mean, the day of sale.
In cash, though?
Cash certified funds, yeah. And you will, if you bid, you're a successful bidder, you'll get a document we basically call a receipt, but it's a proof of purchase, if you want to call it that. And you will carry that down to the treasurer's office, and they'll be there ready to gleefully accept your funds. So you'll be, I mean, that's the system. And then you will get your certificate in the mail.
We repeat the questions for the recording. When people-
Yeah, the question was, when do you pay? And the answer is immediately. And, again, you won't get your certificate for a couple of days just because of the time it takes to print hundreds of certificates.
Isn't the sale's on Saturday, right?
No, it's a Wednesday, I
On
know.
Wednesday? I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday. Yeah, we try not to have Saturday. We have rarely had a Saturday sale, but yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify real quick. When I know that there's some properties that I'm looking at bidding on that I've already done some title search and lien search stuff on, and I do know that some of them have water liens on them. Now, when I, at 9 months, send out that paper that notifies about all that, and if the water company doesn't come up and pay everything off, then am I responsible for that water lien? It's a utility.
Not prior to the sale.
Repeat the question, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, that was a long question. The question was, if you do some research and find water liens, is that a problem? Do they stay with the property, or do they go away with deed?
As long as I go ahead and give the water company the notification and they do not do anything, then I'm not responsible for that lien.
Correct.
Okay.
And actually, I'm trying to think, I don't live in this.
Town of Albany.
So is it Albany Water?
Yeah.
Okay.
Albany will fight you.
Well, it doesn't matter. The law doesn't favor them.
Okay.
They'll not turn the water on.
Well, and we've gotten into that a few times, and
Have you talked with Marcy? Yeah, I've been dealing with her.
Okay.
But wouldn't that lien be included in the minimum bid? Not always.
well, here you go. I mean, if you get a lien subsequent to that, they got to pay it. It should be included in the minimum bid, depending on the filing of it. What happens if it gets filed in November? I mean, those are the issues we run into. But if if that amount's included in the minimum bid, you're paying it
Okay.
when you buy it.
Okay.
And a mowing lien from last summer is included, and you don't have to worry about that. It's these subsequent filed liens.
So, but then there can be an additional lien after November that, because I've already got a lien on it myself, and they add one in November, then I am responsible for that.
Right, and again, these are only liens of political subdivisions.
Okay.
These aren't liens of, like a mechanics lien. And these are, the statute's only talking about liens of political subdivisions. And they're not even technically an interested party. I recommend people send them a notice, because I think it's important that they know what's going on. But, yes.
Hey, on those, if you're finding those, if they're recorded, they're in our office too. So come to our office if they're on the link, on the bill.
Okay.
You'll see that. Now, because anything that would be after that, anything that's recorded is in our office.
Okay,
That's
what's
what it
your
is.
office again?
The auditor.
And you're the auditor, okay.
Mhm.
Who had her hand up? Yes, sir.
Yorktown has water service liens from years back that they maintain you must pay or we just won't turn your water.
Well, those should all be in the minimum bid if they're old. I mean, if they turn those over, those have to be turned over for collection. Those should all be in the minimum bid.
Those are properties in the certificate sale he's talking about.
Oh, yeah, well, those go away. And, yeah, we've had some, well,
2010 A sale,
Okay?
oh, an A sale? Yeah, I don't,
2010 A sale.
was the lien filed after the sale? Oh, you said they were real old.
They were real old. They were before the sale.
I didn't repeat the question either.
They maintained that you had to pay them. Water service and sewage, two different.
Well, we've had some,
Big list, $2,200.
we've had some issues with the city of Muncie on that as well, on the certificate sale, where they say, because the statute requires those taxes and liens get removed, and we have it. And I mean, I got my fanny chewed by the Winchester town clerk not very long ago, because she wasn't wanting to remove those liens and said, we're not going to do it. And I said, yeah, you are. I mean, that's what the statute says. If you don't like it, then go to your legislator.
And you'll probably win, but you gotta go to court.
Yeah. So, I mean, the lien thing is something that we have more questions about. I mean, I gave a little seminar to associations of cities and towns, and it's a big issue. They won't. We tried to work with them on creating a time frame when they couldn't file their liens, so that we didn't have this problem, this time frame that nobody really knows. There's this tainted period from the sale to the end of the year, and they don't budge. Those liens are like gold to them. The city of Indianapolis charges $384 for every yard they mow, and it is a self-funded program. That's just why it's so high, because the only people paying are the ones that are on tax and don't get paid. But that's a lot. I remember when I was 15, I mowed a yard for $4. But it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. I mean, it costs the non-taxpayers. Yeah.
Well, I believe, Ryan, and my boss over there can probably tell you, I believe the State Board of Accounts says that you have to have certain liens done by the same year that you pretty well do the job. Isn't that correct? Isn't that the way they should?
exactly when they have to be filed by.
I think that's a lot of the problem.
Well, it is. It's a huge problem. You're right. And part of it is the word accrue.
Right.
When does a lien accrue? Does a lien accrue when you do the work? Or does it accrue when it gets turned over for collection, certified to the auditor? When does it accrue? I don't know the answer to that. Nowhere in the statute does it define accrue. It's a little bit like the word issued. Your deed gets issued. What does issued mean? Does that mean when it gets signed by the auditor? Or does that mean when it gets handed to you? What does that mean? I mean, there's so many, and believe it or not, that question and that issue over the word issue comes up a lot. So, we just have to kind of do the best we can. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for instance, when we're talking about this, if the water company has put a lien on, say, in March, and it's $668, and the sale goes on in September, and then all of a
filed it with the auditor. That's part of the problem. There's some communities around Indiana where they accumulate their mowing liens, and maybe the town clerk's part-time and she's 25 miles from the county seat, and so she just waits to drive into town once a year and goes in November when they've got all their mowing liens done. And we wanted to try to create just a buffer period, 90 days of, you can't file your liens in that 90-day period. And I mean, they kind of went ballistic about it. Years ago, they only could file them twice a year. And they worked really hard to make it so they could file them any time. And now they don't want to go backwards, so we can't get that association to work with us at all. And they're a pretty strong lobby. They have, think about every mayor and town board around the state. They've got the ears of the legislatures. Yes, sir.
I'm not so much concerned about the previous lien has been put on. I'm in the same situation this young lady is. Because I'm pretty sure that the tax that the property that only has like $74 a year in taxes can't come up with, it's all of $7,000.
Right.
So therefore, there's a municipality lien on it. It's every single month. So from September 12th of 2012 through the 13th, who's responsible for that?
That's
$5 a month.
If I knew the answer to that, I probably wouldn't be up here. I mean, that's a litigation issue that's been.
Because I mean, they call it a fee, but it's really a tax.
And it gets put on every month. Now, another thing though, just so you know, if I mean, you can pay those and file a 137B form. I mean, they're considered a subsequent tax. So just like your May taxes. So that's something you can think about doing. And again, maybe it's not a lot. Maybe you say, I don't mind paying this if I'm going to get a deed, but if I don't get a deed, I'm not going to pay it. And I really don't want it to be delinquent, so you can go ahead and pay it and file a 137B form every time you pay it. Just bring in your receipt and take it into the auditor's office. It's just, it's no different than the May taxes.
If you knew what that
Yeah.
bill was every month, every month you'd
Right.
file that.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Are all these tax sales in-person sales? Is there every time you just bid online?
Well, we've done an online certificate sale here for, 3 years. The certificate sale is the stuff that doesn't get sold in September at the fairgrounds. The county commissioners then take ownership of those certificates. And then they make a decision whether to sell them or not. Some counties do it every other year. Some counties never do it. We've been lucky here that the county officials have decided to be aggressive about getting properties returned to the tax sale. And so they'll have a certificate sale. And those have been online here, I think, the last 3 years. We had Grant County did their regular tax sale online last year. They chose to not do it online this year for whatever reason. They got a new office holder and made some changes. We're doing the Lake County tax sale this year online, and Kosciuszko, which is Warsaw, the lake area. Lake County has 14,000 properties, so when you hear the numbers we're talking about, and it's down. We started with 20,000, so it's down a lot. And but so that's just so big that that's a live sale, and Lake County is a 3 or 4 day proposition. So the online sale works well for them because it doesn't tie up all their human resources sitting in an auditorium about 5 times the size of this one for days. So it's a lot. The online sale is a lot better in a place like that. But the certificate sales have been very good, and most of those we do online. And you can see on our website when you go in there and look around. We do those. I mean, Little J County has 12 properties maybe after their sale. They always do them online because it has nothing to do with size. I mean, it doesn't matter how many you have. This is one case, truly size doesn't matter in the case of certificate sales. So we've got ones with hundreds, thousands, and a handful. I think typically online sales are more successful on the certificate sale, not necessarily on a tax sale. Yes, sir.
The interest accrued, is that based off the minimum bid or the actual bid if it's greater than?
The minimum bid is 10% immediately. In other words, just a straight 10%. And that goes up to 15% after 6 months. The overbid, the surplus bid, is a 10% per annum. So 2 complete different calculations.
When they come up to, if they do come to receive the property back,
No, no, you cannot make payments on redemption.
So they
Have to pay it all at once.
pay it all at once, then you get your check.
Yeah, and understand, if you bid a property from 1,000 up to 10,000, they don't have to pay 10,000. Okay, your overbid is sitting in an account. Okay, because that nobody would ever redeem if they had to pay that full amount. So that overbid sits in a surplus account. So when they come in and redeem, they have to pay all their taxes, your interest, your costs, and that's all. And then the auditor's office goes to the surplus fund and pulls out that $9,000 that got put in there the day of the sale. So the owners don't have to pay that. It's sitting there. Now, if the property, if they don't redeem it and you take it to deed, they are entitled to that surplus. Think of it as equity. I mean, you bid $9,000 more than what they owed. They're entitled to that $9,000 if you take a deed to it as equity, if you want to call it that. Now, if they don't redeem it and you decide maybe you get transferred to Louisiana and you don't want the property anymore, you do nothing, and the county gets to keep the money. That's rare. That doesn't happen very often. I don't know how much, every year when you roll out, and that's for 3 years. That surplus sits there for 3 years. So 3 years from September 12th. So September 12th of 2015, if there's any money left in the surplus account, it goes to the county general fund. And I can tell you, we could have $5 million in there on September 12th of 2012, and by the time Sharon is ready to liquidate that account to county general, if there's $20,000 in there, it's a miracle. I mean, it's not, people know there's money there. They don't let it just ride. And bidders who, say, for instance, you got transferred to Louisiana and you said, I don't want to do this. If you get transferred to Louisiana within a year, you come in and redeem yourself out. Okay, so you come in basically and say, I want to redeem this property I bought. Seems kind of stupid, doesn't it? Then all you're out is the taxes. You get the surplus back because you redeemed it. So you're standing there and they're calling you saying you can come and pick up your check, and you say, hey, I'm over here, I just paid it. But yeah, you're basically taking money out of one pocket, putting it in the other. You get everything back except you get, you go in to redeem, you got to pay your interest that you're going to get. You got to pay your expenses that you've already paid. You get those back, all those different things, but you get your surplus back that you spent. That's the key. And a lot of people self-redeem because they make bad decisions, and so that way they can get out of all of it except except for the taxes. Yes, sir.
There's some occasions where a mortgage company will get the overage.
Only by court order. I mean, the statute's very clear. The only person to get that money is the owner. And the owner, and otherwise by court order. And it used to that we didn't have that in the statute. We changed that because auditors shouldn't have to make those decisions. I mean, that's why you got the folks over there in their black dresses, and they ought to make that decision. It really protects the auditor a little bit from having to decide who should get that money. Yes, sir.
If I were to win a bid and get a tax certificate, and someone outbid me within a certain amount of time?
No. If you bought it the day of the auction, you bought it. I mean,
10 days.
No.
With someone,
No.
like Joe Edwards might want to come and say, well, I'll give you $1,001.
No. If Joe Edwards didn't sign up and bid the day of the sale, he's out of luck. When we close that sale, you can't bid, nobody can bid. You can't, and the certificates that don't sell. Some states allow you to come in and buy those over the counter. Florida, for instance, when they have the sale we do in St. Johns County, 4,000 properties, we sell 3,800. 200 properties then become county-held certificates, they call them there. Here, it's the same concept. They are then awarded to the county. Only in Florida, you can walk in, and it's first come, first serve. Whoever gets there first. It's like eBay, buy it now. For the first dollar amount that has those minimum bid can come in and buy it. Bless you. So that's the same. I mean, it's the same concept. Only in Indiana, we're not allowed to do it. That's why we have certificate sales. It has to be public auction. Everything in Indiana has to be sold at public auction. So, yes, ma'am.
What happens if the person bid that day and then they go home and say, oh, dang.
They owe 25%. And I can tell you, these folks over here, they look very nice. See them? But nice smiles, look at them nodding. Yeah, we're real nice. They won't be that nice then, and statute allows for the prosecutor to get involved, and it's real ugly, and I just don't think you should do it. The guy with the cowboy hat paid, his $1,200 and left, and he was a, big, strong cowboy, but he was afraid of the prosecutor. So don't do it if you, yeah. I mean, people will come in and willing to say, I made a mistake. I know I owe 25%, and they'll, maybe they bought a cheap one and they put down a few $100 and then those, anything that happens on it doesn't happen that often. Those properties basically show as unsold and can then be sold at the certificate sale later if the commissioners choose to have one. Yes, sir.
How often would you suggest a lien certificate actually turns into a deed?
It turns into a deed about 17% of the time. It's higher than it used to be. When I started at this 13 years ago, it was typically 95% of properties redeemed. And it's gone down, but again, that's a function of the number. I mean, look at the wall over here where they put up the sheriff's sales and see how those numbers have increased. Everything is just a function of people not having money and more properties, fewer people redeeming properties. And also built into that statistic a lot of times are properties, people just leave and abandon properties because they're being foreclosed or whatever. And so they just leave.
What month is the certificate sales here in Delaware County?
The commissioners basically established that. When did we have it in March?
2 years we've had it in March.
And we'll have, on our website, we'll have all the dates of all certificates. I think we had 50 this year. Out of our 80 counties, we had 50 counties that had them. A couple counties didn't have any left. Jefferson County, Indiana, has sold 100% of their properties the last few years. Madison's a great booming area. I mean, people love Madison, Indiana. So, and then some of the smaller ones, Tipton, they have, Wells, they have 8 or 9 properties. Ohio County might have, on the day of sale, we might have 2, and they'll call us on our way down, say, no need to come, we just got paid on the last 2. I mean, Ohio County's kind of our joke county that we always tease how many are on there. This year they certified 12. Oh my gosh, what a trend! It was up 50% from the, from the 8 they did last year. But it's amazing. And then you talk about Lake County with 14,000 properties. So that Lake is the largest of any county. Not the most populated county in the state. Obviously, Marion County is. Lake County is the biggest tax sale in Indiana. Ohio is the smallest. So. And we do both. We don't care big or large. We don't. We'd like to do all 92 at some point, but and like I say, we do all the ones around here. Blackford County's got the smallest list they've had since I've ever worked with Blackford County for 13 years, because they have a real active group of people, kind of a private public partnership of the assessor and somebody from the auditor's office and some local retired realtors, and they go out and figure out what to do with the leftovers, and they market them and they do lots of things. So. They can do that because they only have 30 or 40 left over versus Delaware County, they'll have hundreds. We've got blight problems even in the smallest communities. I mean, somebody here from I'm sure you have blight in Albany. Who was here from Albany that was buying property in Albany? I mean, I'm sure within the town of Albany, there's houses you pass and think, gosh, that's an eyesore and it's a dangerous place. I mean, within 2 blocks of where I live, there's 5 of those. And unfortunately, the small towns like Gaston and Albany and Eaton and Selma, they don't have the resources, for one thing, and they don't have the interest. I mean, they don't have, within the city of Muncie, you've got people like these ladies that work at it. I don't know, they still do the Blight Watch in the newspaper?
Once a month.
Yeah. That's kind of the kind of thing that communities need to do more of. Blight Watch and have some of these groups that go out and target properties and try to get them cleaned up. But all this takes money, and no town or city or county has money these days. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's no way to improve blight without money, and nobody's figured out a way to do that. Any other? Yes, sir.
Statistics. What percentage of properties that could have been neither go to deed nor get redeemed?
Minuscule. Not very many. And again, one of the reasons is if people make a bad buy, they come in and self-redeem. And all they've done really is they've paid somebody's taxes for them for 2 years. You remember, when you think about this whole process, if you don't pay your electric bill, how long do it get shut off? Anybody know? I don't know. 3 or 4 months. If you don't pay your car payment, how long till the credit union comes and gets your car? And these properties on this list are people who haven't paid taxes since the prior year spring. Who is more patient about letting you go than the county in this case? I mean, that's a long time to go without paying your bill to have any and it's in most states. In Florida, if you're $1 behind at the time the tax sale certification comes around, you're on the list, which is why a county Delaware size would have 20,000 properties. The small counties down there have 4,000 or 5,000 properties. It's nothing. But see, there's so many people that have summer homes, transients, people that come, the snowbirds, like I wish I was, right? Those people, they want to keep make sure everybody pays their taxes on time. So yeah, that's why their lists are so big. They have a 2-year redemption period, so they get the taxes collected, but then you've got a little extra time to make it right. So Christian Leitner has 2 years instead of 1. Did I see a hand over here? Any other questions? I'm kind of rambling now. I could talk about tax. I'm a tax sale nerd, and I could talk about this stuff for 3 hours. No, I really am. It's kind of sad. So, okay, I'm going to give you all one of these handouts, and on the front of that handout is a website, the website that we aren't looking at anymore, that we are now, maybe. Anyway, on this website, and if you remember that page where my picture was? It also has my email address right there with my picture. If any of you have any questions, and I don't care if you're, I have insomnia sometimes too, send me a question, send it to me, email me. I don't care. I encourage it. I don't want anybody to show up at the sale to bid and maybe not be not be informed of whatever. So please don't hesitate. If it's in your mind and you're thinking, I'm not going to bother that guy, no, bother that guy, because I don't care. I mean, I've gotten, between the time that I got here and we started, I got 2 emails from bidders in other counties. One of them was Grant County. How come you're not doing the sale online this year? I really like that. That was one of the questions. It wasn't my decision. I just wrote back and said, the county decided not to do it. But I will respond to you fairly quickly, and I would encourage you to email me, seriously. Look at this website, look around on there, afford yourself all the opportunities that gives you for information. Because there's nothing worse than buying and losing your money. I mean, I can't bid, but I'd be one of those idiots probably that'd be losing their money. So I'm going to hand these out. Any other questions?
Well, let's thank Joe for this wonderful information that we got. Thank you to the county folks for being here. I know that if you have any questions, you might catch them before they head out. And hopefully we'll see you on September the 12th.
Can I say one more thing?
Please.
I forgot. On the back of this document is a couple pages. It's called a blanket consent form. Don't worry about what it's called. Let me tell you what it does. You may find on some of these properties there's an IRS lien. Yeah, you hear that? Believe it or not, the IRS likes tax sales, and they play friendly with us on tax sale. And on the back of this document is what's called a blanket consent. The IRS says, we will make our lien go away, but you got to do a couple special things for us, like send us a copy of the warrant that your title searcher will find. You don't have to go look for these. These are all recorded. They're all in the clerk's office. So if there's an IRS lien, your title company is going to say there's an IRS lien. And they're going to have a copy of that warrant, the tax warrant that creates the lien. On the back of here, very specific rules of how to make those liens go away. Don't be scared by an IRS tax lien. They're easy to make go away, and that's a question. People say, "Oh, IRS, not bad." And IRS, by the way, is reversed as SRI. Just so I mentioned that, not by design. So don't worry about it. But this document here will have on the back of it. The one online doesn't have it because it's for every county. This is actually signed by the auditor. Every 2 years, the IRS sends one of these out, and they sign it, and then that lien can go away if you follow these. And they're not hard rules. It's not like you got to go out and stand in the middle of Madison on one foot and balk like a chicken. I mean, you got to just do a couple little things. Different than your other liens. So I forgot to mention that. It's important to know because IRS liens scare people to death. Okay. Yeah. I should have plenty of them. Yeah, if any of you have filled one of these out or want to, now's a good time to be filling this out. It's not critical. I mean, if you don't, you can still show up to sale and bid. I noticed in the paper it said the sale's at 9. It will start at 10. The auctioning, my spiel, which you've heard some of already. So go ahead and laugh at the jokes, even the ones aren't good, that day, because, but we'll start the actual talking and bidding at 10 o'clock. So if you get there early, I get you registered, get your number.